Okay, so friends, welcome to this presentation. Thanks for your patience. We are going to look at the topic of social enterprise today together. So let's do this. The first bit is some background about social enterprise. Social enterprise arose because capitalism has created a growing gap between the rich and the poor over the past 3 decades. So that gap keeps increasing, and that's according to Isaac and Stiglitz. And then social entrepreneurs have taken on the task of helping the economically disadvantaged groups who are being left out and satisfying the needs of the unserved or underserved populations that lack the ability to pay for the products and services they desperately need. Then we have Hamby, Pierce, and Greenberg observed that social entrepreneurs face a number of problems, challenges involving economic, social, and cultural dimensions, which create a complex and often very unpredictable matrix among diverse stakeholders. And these challenges arise because they are neither commercial enterprises nor NGOs per se. And yet they have to meet the economic challenges, they have to meet the social challenges, which are the needs of the community, and also the cultural dimensions that they exist in. Some introduction. In Kenya, all the social enterprises are covered under the umbrella body called Social Enterprise Society of Kenya. The logo is there, SESOC. This began in 2017. And SESOC defines a social enterprise as an organization or a business which uses commercial strategies. That's very key. It uses commercial strategies for the benefit of society or the environment while making a profit. That's a very, very interesting definition because it suggests that social enterprises are a hybrid of commercial enterprises and non-governmental organizations. So no government policy or legislation exists in Kenya to guide social enterprises, which means then they are guided by the laws that operate for other businesses, private or NGOs. But we don't just have legal provisions for social enterprises in Kenya. Henley et al. In 2015 found that social enterprises contribute in a very great way to the provision of basic needs and the eradication of poverty in Kenya. Henley et al. Established that social enterprises in the 3 main key areas tend to have enjoyed social investment. And these 3 main areas are environment, education and training, and ICT. So those are the ones that tend to be funded the most: environment, education and training, then ICT. Now we are going to look at the social enterprise landscape in Kenya. In Kenya, around 3% of the social enterprises began in the 1980s, only about 3%, when Kenya experienced marked economic changes that were characterized by lower state investment. So the government investment in social services started reducing in the 1980s, and that sparked the need for the beginning of social services in our country. So after 2012, that's when the social enterprise ecosystem picked up. We had a burst of new enterprises being opened to cater for the underprivileged and underserved communities. However, right now we have a huge number of social enterprises. A British Council study in 2018 found that we have at least 43,933 social enterprises. Just imagine. And most of these enterprises are young entities with young founders who are optimistic about the future. So we are now going to look at some examples of social enterprises, both in the world and in our country. The first one we're looking at is Teach for America, which is a very well-known social enterprise. It sponsors bright college students to teach in struggling school districts in America. Then the next one is Swivelbox. Swivelbox is a Nairobi-based organization which provides entrepreneurial training for the youth, including those from disadvantaged communities in Kenya. It also helps educational institutions across the board, schools, colleges, and so on, to design curricular content on entrepreneurship. So that's very important so that children and all the young people in educational institutions can be exposed to entrepreneurial skills, which is not provided in our regular 844 or CBC curriculum in a way that can make a change in the community. So through its 5-day entrepreneurial academy, Swivelbox provides a platform that supports students between 14 and 18, these are high school students, to develop business ideas that are pitched to established entrepreneurs. Can you imagine high school students developing ideas and pitching them before entrepreneurs who are established? Just imagine what a transformation that causes in those students' lives. Those who are funded are able to even start businesses when they are still in high. Swivelbox plows its profit or surplus into growth and development activities instead of what will happen in a commercial enterprise where profits are normally taken by the owners or the shareholders. We are going to look at another one. Okay. Yeah, the next one is EcoPost. EcoPost is also a social enterprise in Kenya whose focus is on sustainable living. So it addresses the challenges of urban waste management. You know, in many urban centers in Kenya, we have a huge challenge of waste disposal and waste management. So this entity focuses on trying to solve the challenge of plastic pollution, chronic youth unemployment, deforestation, and climate change. So how do they do it? They recycle waste plastic to manufacture eco-friendly plastic lumber profiles with application in numerous industries, from fencing to road signage to outdoor furniture. So EcoPost combines an existing technology, local labor, and resources to provide an innovative product and helps to solve pressing socioeconomic and environmental challenges. Let's go on to the next one. Yeah, characteristics of a social enterprise. So what makes a social enterprise a social enterprise? So one, it is established with social ends as the goal, not commercial ends. Secondly, it is driven by a spirit of activism, wanting to make a change in the society, and the ability to identify and pursue opportunities to create social value. Thirdly, it aims to create social value. Fourth, it aims at self-sustainability. That's why then it also focuses on generating profits, not to enrich the owners or the shareholders, but rather to continue making that enterprise self-sustaining. Then fifth, it targets scalability, which means expansion, and replicability, which means being when you have it expanding to other regions and being copied even for greater social value. So within economic constraints and demonstrating strategic and managerial capabilities. So what makes a business a social enterprise? Is any business a social enterprise? We have businesses in Kenya such as Safaricom, which engage in corporate social responsibility activity, CSR. So does that make Safaricom a social enterprise? What about the business that is outside where you stay, or the business you pass when you're going to work? Is it a social enterprise? So that's the question we want to answer right now. So the first characteristic of the first feature rather that makes a business a social enterprise is it pursues a social or environmental agenda. There has to be a social or environmental agenda. Secondly, it has to reinvest most of the profits in the business. It has to reinvest most of the profits in the business for self-sustainability. Thirdly, its main source of income is trading. So this is a key difference with NGOs. NGOs' main source of income, we have donor funding, we have grants, as opposed to social enterprises which generate their income from trading. Fourth, a social enterprise isn't a government institution. So it is completely separated from the government. And lastly, it is transparent and accountable. So it isn't run in a way that doesn't show responsibility, in a way that isn't transparent. It's even able to, you can even audit it as a way of keeping the entity accountable. So benefits of social enterprise, there are several, as you can see here, about 10 separate benefits. First one, profit generation for growth, development and funding of third-party social and environmental programs. So it generates profits to develop, to grow, and even to fund similar social enterprises or environmental programs. Secondly, job creation. So many youth, women, and even men are employed in these social enterprises, so they are performing a very important role in that sense. Thirdly, environmental conservation, like we saw EcoPost. Then improvement of health and well-being of communities. We have a number of social enterprises that focus on health. Fifth, we have improvement of water and sanitation. Then improvement of education and literacy standards. We have some of these enterprises sponsor children. Some of them produce learning materials. Some of them train teachers, and so on. We even have an example that I want to give of the Bridge Academies, which were unfortunately closed. But I believe those were an example of a social enterprise. They were very affordable to many parents in the underprivileged communities. I believe their fees were about 500 shillings per month, which is anyone can, most Kenyans can afford, even in slums and the poor communities. Then provision of entrepreneurship training, like we saw Civil Box, supporting the vulnerable, who are the old, the children, widowed, and the differently abled, not the disabled. Then increasing financial inclusivity. We have some of these enterprises focus on helping women, especially the widowed, to be more financially empowered through such activities as stable banking and so on. Then creation of market for goods and services. We have some of these enterprises engaged in agricultural activities. So they sell their produce. They are able to give the farmers markets. We have some of them that measure on the art and craft activities. So women make beads. I think there's one called Kazuri Beads in Nairobi that does an activity such as the one I've mentioned. Then we have also some other enterprises that build markets for artisans. So you can see those are about 10 benefits of social enterprises. So challenges, it's not a bed of roses running a social enterprise. We have these 6 major challenges facing social enterprises in Kenya that make it an uphill challenge starting and maintaining a social enterprise. One, access to capital for expansion and scaling. This is a big one. You find some prospective social entrepreneurs have great ideas, but they lack capital to implement those ideas and to reach the communities that they want to reach. Secondly, operation strategy, and where the managers don't have a great strategy to operate the enterprise, which then means that the health of the enterprise is at risk, and you may find, just like other businesses, some of them collapsing within a short time because of the lack of clear operation strategy and focus. Then entrepreneurial skill, because these are not NGOs that can rely on donor funding. These are not commercial enterprises that can make business, can do business to just generate profits. They have to strike that middle ground. And for that to happen, the owners or the managers have to have great skills of making money to keep those entities alive. Then weak governance and weak governance systems, because we don't have clear operating framework in Kenya for the social enterprises, and that's what caused the starting of the CESOC organization to try to provide that framework and guidance and of how to govern those entities. Fifth, government regulations. Since we don't just have laws that govern them, so they are forced to meet various regulations at the county level, at the national government level, which then makes it complicated to run a social enterprise. In fact, a study found that a significant portion of the manager's time is taken trying to meet different regulations, which then takes their focus away from their main business of serving those communities. Then 6, lack of access to support and advisory services. Okay, so the conclusion which I want to share is just to have at the back of our minds that social enterprises exist for 3 purposes: to serve the people, the communities, to generate profit, to make them self-sustaining and to expand, and thirdly, for environmental, to serve the earth, to serve the environment, which is shown there by the sign of planet. So social enterprises are critical in narrowing the gap between the haves and the have-nots, who are either underserved or unserved by government and capitalistic enterprises. Because government faces resource constraints due to inadequacy or wastage, and capitalistic enterprises target maximization of profit and shareholder equity, underprivileged communities are in perpetual danger of sinking deeper and deeper into worsening conditions in a perniciously vicious cycle of poverty and lack. It is this crippling and inescapable need that social enterprise meets, hitting the two proverbial birds with one stone by pursuing profit for a social good. Simply put, without social enterprise, the underprivileged communities will very likely have no other salvation. As the Harvard Business Review tells us, it is not about the fame, glory, or money. It's about building products that transform the world and drive humanity forward. Thank you. I wanted to show you a video, but I'm not able to share my sound. So I'm going to find another way to share that video with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Harun.
Welcome, Daktari.
Any reaction from our colleagues?
Just a question to Harun.
Yes, please.
I didn't know bridge schools closed. When did that happen?
There was a government decision that they were running without following some regulations. So that happened last year, but I have to confirm whether that is still the case. But it was actually controversial, and there was even the controversy pitted the teachers' union. I remember Sosion raising a big issue about bridge academies.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Harun,
Yes, Edna.
that was a very insightful presentation. I initially I thought when you started presenting that social enterprises were like NGOs, but at the end I think I got the difference.
Yes.
Yeah, there's this is it a school or in the middle of Kibera called Shofko? Is that an example of a social enterprise?
Okay, so to answer that question, we will need to consider the characteristics. So I think that organization, Shofco, charges fees, and it
NGO.
also serves the poor community. So if it does, then it's a social enterprise. If it doesn't, it will be an NGO. That's what I would think.
Okay. And we don't have any laws in Kenya that govern any of this because I think maybe some people can take advantage.
Yes, indeed. We don't have clear legal framework. That's one of the challenges facing the social enterprise landscape in Kenya. So they have to operate under the framework provided for NGOs and other commercial businesses.
Thank you.
Welcome. Do you have questions?
All right. So good. Thank you very much, Harun. It was a very insightful presentation indeed. Okay, so just give me a minute. I'll just prepare my presentation. After that, we will end our first segment for today's class. And after that, we're going to go for a 30-minute break. And then we continue with our second segment. All right?